Quentin Tarantino walked into Cannes in 1994 with a briefcase full of contradictions, and he walked out with the Palme d'Or. The film cost $8 million to make and pulled in over $200 million worldwide. For context, that same year, True Lies cost $115 million and made less profit. Miramax had bet on a guy whose previous film, Reservoir Dogs, had made people walk out during the ear-cutting scene. They gave him creative control, and he gave them a cultural reset button. The production itself reads like controlled chaos. Tarantino wrote the screenplay in Amsterdam, Paris, and Los Angeles over the course of 3 weeks, though he'd been sitting on these stories for years. The Vincent Vega and Marcellus Wallace's wife section started as a short story he'd written. The Gold Watch narrative came from ideas he'd abandoned for earlier projects. He was essentially remixing his own unused material, which explains why the whole thing feels like a greatest hits album where every track somehow works together. Here's what gets overlooked in the usual discussions about non-linear storytelling and postmodern dialogue. Tarantino is making a movie about movie making. Every frame drips with self-awareness about cinema as a construct. The characters speak in references. Vincent talking about hash bars in Amsterdam, Jules quoting the Bible by way of a Sonny Chiba film. They exist in a heightened reality where everyone's performing their own genre. Vincent and Jules are doing a buddy cop film. Butch is living out a noir revenge fantasy. Pumpkin and Honey Bunny are in a Bonnie and Clyde knockoff until they're not. The casting tells you everything about Tarantino's intentions. John Travolta hadn't been in a significant film since the early 80s. His career was circling the drain of direct-to-video releases and Look Who's Talking sequels. Tarantino saw something in that faded star quality. The guy who used to be Danny Zuko playing a heroin-addicted hitman with dad jokes and a potbelly. That's a metatextual choice. Vincent Vega is walking anachronism, a relic trying to navigate a world that's moved past him, just like Travolta was in 1994. Bruce Willis was still riding high on Die Hard success, but he was getting pigeonholed into action hero roles. Tarantino gave him Butch Coolidge, a washed-up boxer who gets one last shot at dignity. The parallel between actor and character writes itself. Uma Thurman was known for artsy films like Henry and June. Casting her as Mia Wallace, the gangster's wife who does line readings from failed TV pilots, that's Tarantino commenting on Hollywood's consumption of artistic identity. Then there's Samuel L. Jackson. He'd been working steadily for years, mostly in supporting roles. Jules Winfield made him a star, and the Ezekiel 25:17 speech is why. Except that biblical passage doesn't exist the way Jules recites it. Tarantino lifted one line from the actual Bible verse and manufactured the rest, borrowing from the opening of the Japanese film The Bodyguard.
The path of the righteous man and defender is beset on all sides by the inequity of selfish and the tyranny of evil men.
Jules is performing scripture, weaponizing religious text as psychological warfare. The fact that millions of people think it's a real Bible verse proves the power of confident delivery over factual accuracy. The briefcase. Everyone wants to know what's in the briefcase.
Yeah. Vincent!
The online theories range from Marcellus Wallace's soul to the diamonds from Reservoir Dogs to nuclear material. Tarantino has consistently refused to explain it, which is the only correct artistic choice. The briefcase contains whatever gives the story meaning for you. It's a MacGuffin in the Hitchcock tradition, but it's also a Rorschach test. What you think is in that briefcase reveals what you think the movie is about. Redemption? Damnation? Capitalism? The pursuit of material wealth? The case glows gold, bathes faces in heavenly light, and contains nothing the audience needs to see. That's the point. The structure of the film operates on a principle of controlled entropy. Tarantino takes 7 distinct sequences and arranges them to maximize thematic resonance over chronological logic.
Everybody in corners to robbery!
This structure accomplishes something most nonlinear narratives fumble. It makes death feel impermanent and profoundly permanent at the same time. Vincent Vega is dead. We watched it happen. But he's alive in the final scene, eating breakfast and cracking jokes. The movie exists in a space where consequence and escape coexist, where characters can die and still get redemption, where the ending comes before the middle, and somehow that makes emotional sense. The violence in Pulp Fiction operates on cartoon logic until it doesn't. Marvin gets his head blown off by accident, and the scene plays for uncomfortable comedy. Blood everywhere, Jules freaking out about his car, Vincent protesting it wasn't his fault. Then we get the rape scene in the pawn shop basement. Tarantino shoots it with genuine horror. No jokes, no winking at the camera. He's calibrating the audience's relationship with violence throughout the entire runtime, training us to laugh at some brutality while recoiling at others. That tonal whiplash is intentional. It forces viewers to confront their own comfort with violence as entertainment. The dialogue has been quoted to death, memed into oblivion, parodied by every film student with access to a camera. But the reason it works has less to do with what characters say, and more to do with what they're avoiding saying. Vincent and Jules have an extended conversation about foot massages and their erotic implications. They're professional killers heading to murder someone, and they're debating the intimacy of rubbing feet. That conversation is them not talking about the violence they're about to commit. It's displacement, a psychological defense mechanism transformed into cinematic technique. When Butch and Marcellus run into each other in the street, right after Butch has betrayed him, they don't immediately fight. They stare. Then they end up in a pawn shop run by rapists. The detour into that basement is Tarantino literalizing the subtext. These two men were heading toward a violent confrontation, and instead they end up bound and violated by an external evil so grotesque it recontextualizes their conflict. When Butch saves Marcellus, he's not acting out of nobility or forgiveness. He's responding to something more primal, a recognition that some violations transcend personal vendetta. The film's relationship with time deserves more attention. Characters are constantly waiting. Vincent and Jules wait before the hit. Vincent waits at Mia's house while she prepares. Butch waits for Fabienne at the motel. The Wolf shows up and makes everyone wait while he orchestrates the cleanup. Pulp Fiction understands that gangster life involves hours of tedious downtime punctuated by moments of extreme action.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
Most crime films skip the boring parts. Tarantino makes the boring parts the point. The waiting is where character lives, where we see these people as humans rather than archetypes. Tarantino shot most of the film in sequence, which is unusual for productions trying to maximize location efficiency. He wanted the actors to experience the story chronologically, even though audiences wouldn't. This created interesting dynamics on set. Travolta had to play scenes knowing Vincent would die, while maintaining the character's obliviousness to his fate. That doomed quality permeates Vincent's performance. He moves through the film like someone who's already dead but hasn't gotten the memo. The color grading and cinematography, courtesy of Andrei Sekula, bathes everything in warm, saturated tones. The film looks like a comic book, which makes sense given the pulp magazine aesthetic Tarantino was chasing. But those vibrant colors also make the violence more shocking. Blood is bright red against yellow walls and white shirts. The contrast between beautiful imagery and brutal content creates cognitive dissonance that keeps viewers slightly off balance throughout the entire runtime. Religious imagery saturates the film, but Tarantino isn't making a religious movie. He's examining how people use spiritual frameworks to justify or escape their choices. Jules finds God in surviving the shooting. He interprets it as a miracle, a sign to change his life. Vincent, in the same situation, just thinks they got lucky. Same experience, different narratives. Jules chooses redemption. Vincent chooses continuity, stays in the life, and dies on the toilet reading a book. The film doesn't tell us who's right. It just shows us that the story we tell ourselves about our lives determines the life we end up living.
Cool.
The Wolf, played by Harvey Keitel, appears for maybe 10 minutes of screen time and dominates every second.
How much the Wolf?
He's a problem solver, a fixer who shows up at 8:30 in the morning, drinks coffee, and efficiently orchestrates the cleanup of a car full of brain matter. His character represents a fantasy of competence in a world of chaos. Everyone else in the film is barely keeping it together. The Wolf knows exactly what needs to happen and makes it happen. That fantasy of male competence, of having the right answer in a crisis, speaks directly to why certain demographics gravitate toward this film. Butch's relationship with Fabienne gets dismissed in a lot of analyses, but it reveals something crucial about Tarantino's view of masculinity. Butch is tender with her. He indulges her random conversation about potbellies. He calls her sweet names. Then she forgets his father's watch, and he risks his life to retrieve it. That watch, passed down through 3 generations of men who suffered and died in wars, represents a masculine inheritance that Butch can't abandon. Christopher Walken's cameo, delivering the watch monologue to young Butch, is pure myth-making, turning a piece of metal into a talisman of masculine duty and sacrifice. The film ends where it began, in the diner, with Jules converting Pumpkin through a combination of spiritual testimony and credible threat of violence. He gives away the money, keeps the wallet, and lets them go. It's mercy, but it's also Jules asserting dominance through restraint. He's powerful enough to choose nonviolence. That's the film's final statement on masculinity and power. The ultimate flex isn't the violence itself, but the decision to walk away when you could easily destroy someone. Pulp Fiction became a cultural phenomenon because it arrived at the exact moment when audiences were hungry for something that felt dangerous and smart simultaneously. Tarantino made a film that was deeply knowledgeable about cinema history while also being wildly entertaining.
I know how good it is.
He proved you could be intellectual and visceral, referential and original, funny and disturbing. Pulp Fiction is a movie that rewards repeat viewings, that operates on multiple levels, that works as pure entertainment and as a text about entertainment. It's a film you can watch casually or study obsessively, and both approaches yield satisfaction. Tarantino made a movie that flatters its audience's intelligence while never forgetting to entertain them. That's why it endures, why it still gets referenced and quoted and analyzed 30 years later. If you're still here, you either love this movie, love hating people who love this movie, or you're procrastinating something important. Whatever category you fall into, subscribe for more video essays that treat cinema like it matters. Comment which Tarantino film actually deserves this much analysis. Like the video if you think more people need to hear this, or don't. Jules walked away. You can too.